I have one question for you. When was the last time you actually reviewed your captain's invoices? Not just glanced at them, not skimmed through them, but went through every line, item by item, and compared the prices against the market rate? Because if you haven't, and if the mechanism I'm about to show you applies to your yacht, you may be losing 200,000 euros, perhaps more, every single year, on silent commissions that have never appeared on a single invoice, and you can't detect them without one straightforward procedure, which I'll walk you through right now. The yacht industry is one of the most beautiful in the world, and one of the least transparent. Not because the people who work in it are dishonest, but because for decades, no one ever asked for the details. The owner would come aboard for the weekend. The captain managed everything else for the rest of the year. That's how it worked in Cannes, in Antibes, in Sardinia, in Croatia, in the Balearics, and it still works on hundreds of yachts every season. Let's start with the basics. Your captain is making purchases regularly. Mooring lines when the old ones wear out. Maintenance chemicals, deck cleaners, thick sealant, hull polish. Crew clothing, foul weather gear, deck shoes, gloves. Small parts, fluids, and that's entirely normal. The captain has to manage all of this. The problem starts at one very specific moment. The supplier, because the captain is a regular, high-volume client, offers a discount, 20%, sometimes more. The honest captain says, "Great, issue the invoice with the discount applied, the owner pays less, full stop." The dishonest captain says something else entirely. "Issue it at the full price. We'll split the difference between us." The owner pays 100%. The supplier pays back 20%, in cash or by transfer to a private account. The owner never finds out. And now comes the worst part. Once a captain gets a taste of these commissions, his entire attitude towards the budget shifts. He stops looking for savings. He starts optimizing, but for himself, not for you. A fuel filter that lasts 6 months gets replaced every 3. 50 liters of paint where 20 would have been enough. New lines where the old ones had 2 more seasons left in them. Every unnecessary euro spent comes back to him as commission. The owner is essentially funding his own defrauding. And all the while, he thinks he has an exceptionally thorough captain. This isn't theory. It's documented in hundreds of court cases around the world and described openly by captains themselves on industry forums. I'll quote one of them directly. "I earn significantly more from oil changes with filters and anodes than from simply running the boat. I take a margin on everything I buy." End of quote. That person wrote it publicly, on a forum, and nobody was particularly shocked. Before we go any further, I want to say something important. I'm not telling you this to make you distrust your captain. Most captains are honest. Some of them are people you can rely on without reservation. But even a fundamentally honest person, in an environment with no oversight at all, can gradually give in to temptations that surround them every single day. I'm telling you this because yacht owners, often the sharpest business minds I know, switch off every corporate standard they apply in their companies the moment they step on board. Not because they're naive, because a yacht is a place to relax. And relaxation and business vigilance rarely coexist comfortably. Let me show you what happens when that vigilance disappears for years. 2016, South Florida. The owner of a motor yacht makes a decision. She wants something exceptional. She commissions a full refit, extending the yacht from 98 feet to 110. She brings in a project manager who promises something extraordinary. The trade press quotes him by name, the most magnificent yacht ever built. The owner signs the contract and opens a financing line with no hard cap. 3 years later, August 2019. Work has stopped. The yacht stands at 65% completion. An unfinished hull. The owner launches a cascade of lawsuits. And this is where the real horror begins. From court filings emerges a catalog that is deeply uncomfortable to read. Rolex watches handed to subcontractors as bribes. Luxury trips charged to the build fund. Private helicopter flying lessons billed against investor money. Ghost employees. On the payroll, non-existent on the construction site. Materials invoiced as certified, actually cheap substitutes. Work billed as skilled engineering, but carried out by cheap day laborers. One of the suppliers broke under questioning and agreed to testify. He confirmed he had paid a commission in cash, in a single payment, simply for directing the yacht to that particular yard. The owner had paid $62,132,000 for the plumbing and metalwork alone. Read that again. For plumbing and metalwork. 62 million. Total losses exceeded $100 million. The yacht was never finished. The lead project manager declared bankruptcy, a classic and cynical exit strategy in this industry, and vanished. A month later, someone spotted him at another yard with an even more expensive project. And this is the heart of the story. The owner was an outstanding businessman. He ran dozens of projects. He understood precisely how business works. But on his yacht, he had switched off every rule he applied in his company. There was no independent auditor, no hard limits. There was friendship, there was trust. And there was the feeling that this was a yacht, not a corporation. That mistake cost him $100 million. An extreme case. But the mechanism that produced it, no oversight, no audit, no outside perspective, operates on a smaller scale on thousands of yachts every season. Not at the level of 100 million. But let's do the maths. A yacht with an annual operating budget of 500,000 euros. 20% in silent commissions. That's 100,000 euros a year. Over 10 years, 1 million euros flowing out quietly, invisibly, through every invoice for oil, for lines, for servicing. And in the vast majority of cases, the owner has absolutely no idea. To understand why this happens, we need to understand the environment. The superyacht captain lives in a world of extreme contrasts. For 11 months of the year, he manages an asset worth several million euros. He makes decisions whose consequences can cost human lives. He works surrounded by the finest wines, in cabins finished in marble, on decks that cost as much as a flat on the French Riviera. He earns between 6,000 and 12,000 euros a month. Good money, but incomparably less than the value of what he manages. This isn't an excuse, it's context. And in the human mind, that disproportion has an effect. A captain who watches the owner spend 50,000 euros on a single weekend without blinking and earns only a fraction of that himself doesn't always hold the line. There's also something industry researchers call the maritime culture of commissions. For decades, and I mean literally decades, supplier commissions were treated as an unofficial but entirely normal part of senior officers' compensation. Nobody asked openly, nobody objected. A captain who takes 20% from the maintenance supplier doesn't necessarily feel he's stealing. He feels he's leveling the playing field. That's not an excuse, but it is an explanation, which is precisely why the solution is not replacing the captain. It's changing the system. Without a system in place, even an honest person can eventually give way. This dynamic has historical roots that reach all the way to the heights of the maritime industry. In 1991, the Taiwanese Navy paid $340 million in hidden commissions in a warship procurement deal with France. The same logic, the same scale, exists wherever the flow of money is large and oversight is thin. But there are also captains who operate in a completely different way. There are genuinely a great many of them. I know one personally. 20 years at sea. He has commanded yachts for clients whose names I'd rather not mention. Not once in his entire career has he taken a commission from any supplier. When I ask him why, his answer is brief. Because it's not my money. Reputation is worth more than any commission I could ever take. That man is today one of the most sought-after captains in the Mediterranean. Owners pass his contact from hand to hand. He earns above the market rate and never, literally never, has to look for work. When a supplier offers him a discount, he doesn't pocket it. He calls the owner and says, "I've just been offered a 20% discount. I'm issuing the invoice with it applied. We'll save 2,000 euros. No fuss, no drama, no grand gesture. It's simply the right thing to do. That kind of captain is irreplaceable, and he should be paid accordingly. Which brings us to a paradox that destroys owners' budgets the world over. An owner who negotiates too hard on the contract saves perhaps 4,000 euros a month. The captain who accepted those terms has already worked out exactly how to make up the difference. Through commissions, through inflated invoices, through invisible surcharges on every purchase, and he will, with interest. Let's run the numbers. 20% of an annual operating budget of 1 million euros is 200,000 euros every year. The owner who saved 4,000 a month by driving a hard bargain thinks he came out ahead. In reality, he's paying far more in commissions. The cheap captain is the most expensive captain you can have. And the reverse is equally true. Fair market compensation is not a cost. It's the best investment in loyalty and transparency available to you. A captain who earns honestly, who knows you understand exactly what he's doing, who has a contract with a clear anti-corruption clause, has no reason to look for money elsewhere, zero motivation to scheme. This isn't philosophy, it's mathematics. The good news: there are concrete solutions. You don't need a private detective. You need three things. First, an independent owner's representative for any refit above 50,000 euros. Someone paid exclusively by you. Zero connection to the yard. Zero commission from suppliers. Zero conflict of interest. That kind of specialist costs between 5 and 15,000 euros for project oversight. A properly supervised refit will save you anywhere from 100,000 to several 100,000 euros. This isn't a cost. It's a return on investment that no fund can match. Second, and cash on board. Platforms like Volley, purpose-built for superyacht budget management, make every purchase visible in real time. The captain buys oil in the port of Palma. That same evening, you see the invoice on your phone, with the amount, the name of the supplier, the time of the transaction. This isn't a sign of distrust. It's a normal corporate standard, the same one you apply in every other business you run. Third, one audit per year. Ask for a breakdown of the 5 largest suppliers from the previous year. Call one of them. Ask about their trading terms with your captain. Did he ask for a discount? What did he receive? It's one conversation. It could save you tens of thousands of euros. And it tells you everything you need to know. And before you hire a new captain, one simple test. Ask him directly whether he accepts an anti-corruption clause in his contract, and whether he agrees to a corporate card system rather than cash on board. An honest captain answers immediately, without hesitation, without negotiating. A captain who hesitates has already given you his answer. A yacht is a unique investment. It combines pleasure with responsibility. And that is precisely why it demands the same standards you apply to any other asset in your portfolio. It's not about distrust. It's about professionalism on both sides. An owner who puts clear procedures in place gives their captain something genuinely valuable, an environment in which they can work with integrity, without temptation, without gray areas, without the moral dilemma that quietly corrodes the relationship over time. It's an arrangement that works for both sides. The owner has transparency, the captain has clarity, and the yacht remains exactly what it was always meant to be.